the seven-stage pattern that destroys every empire, and where America is right now. There are exactly 7 stages to every empire collapse in recorded history. Every single one. Rome, the Ottomans, Britain, 7 stages. And right now, America is at stage 5. I know that sounds dramatic, but I'm going to show you the pattern with data. Not opinion, data. And when you see it, you can't unsee it. September 4th, 476 AD. The last Roman emperor is deposed. The empire that ruled the Mediterranean for 500 years is gone. November 1st, 1922. The Ottoman Sultanate is abolished. 600 years of empire ends in a single decree. October 29th, 1956. Britain withdraws from Suez after American financial pressure. The empire that controlled a quarter of the Earth's land surface is finished as a superpower. 3 different empires, 3 different centuries, 3 different continents, same 7 stages. Stage 1, economic prosperity through expansion. Stage 2, debt accumulation to fund military. Stage 3, currency debasement and inflation. Stage 4, military overreach. Stage 5, loss of allies and credibility. Stage 6, political paralysis. Stage 7, rapid collapse. Rome took 247 years from stage 1 to stage 7. The Ottomans took 181 years. Britain took 41 years. The pattern compresses over time. Today I'm going to walk you through each stage, not with theory, with specific dates, specific decisions, specific numbers. You'll see the Roman denarius lose 98% of its silver content. You'll see the Ottoman debt to GDP ratio hit 250% in 1875. You'll see Britain go from creditor to debtor in 4 years during World War I. And then I'll show you where America is on this same timeline. With the same level of precision, no politics, no predictions, just pattern recognition. What can history teach us today? That empires don't collapse randomly. They follow a sequence. And once you're past stage 3, the sequence accelerates. Here's where it gets interesting. Every empire thinks it's different. Every empire believes it has discovered some new model that breaks the pattern. Rome thought its military was invincible. The Ottomans thought their geographic position made them indispensable. Britain thought the pound sterling would remain the global reserve currency forever. They were all wrong. Let's start with stage 1. Stage 1 is economic prosperity through expansion. Rome in 146 BC conquers Carthage and Greece. Suddenly, the treasury is flooded with tribute, slaves, and trade routes. GDP per capita doubles in 30 years. The Roman elite build villas. They import silk from China. They create the first true consumer economy in the West. The Ottoman Empire in 1453 takes Constantinople. They control the trade routes between Europe and Asia. Customs revenue alone funds the entire imperial administration. Sultan Mehmed II builds the Topkapi Palace with 400 rooms. The treasury overflows. Britain in 1815 defeats Napoleon. The Royal Navy controls global shipping lanes. British banks finance railroads on 5 continents. London becomes the capital of global finance. Between 1815 and 1870, British GDP triples. This is the golden age. This is when empires feel unstoppable. But here's the thing. Stage 1 contains the seeds of stage 2. Because expansion requires military force, and military force requires funding. And eventually, the cost of maintaining the empire exceeds the revenue it generates. Stage 2. Debt accumulation. Rome in 33 AD faces its first major banking crisis. The empire has expanded to the Rhine and the Danube. But maintaining 30 legions costs more than the provinces generate. Emperor Tiberius has to inject 100 million sesterces of his personal fortune into the banking system to prevent collapse. The debt never goes away, it just grows. By 235 AD, the Roman military budget consumes 75% of all imperial revenue. The empire borrows from Italian bankers. It borrows from Eastern merchants. It borrows from anyone who will lend. The Ottomans follow the same path. In 1854, they take their first foreign loan to fund the Crimean War. 60 million francs from British and French banks at 6% interest. 20 years later, in 1875, the Ottoman Empire declares bankruptcy. Total debt, £242 million. That's 250% of GDP. The empire literally cannot pay. Britain does it faster. In 1914, Britain is the world's largest creditor nation. British banks hold £4 billion in foreign assets. 4 years later, in 1918, Britain is a debtor. The war costs £35 billion. The empire borrows from America. It borrows from its own colonies. It prints money. The debt-to-GDP ratio goes from 26% in 1914 to 136% in 1918. Every empire hits this wall. The military costs more than the empire generates. So they borrow, and borrowing leads directly to Stage 3. Stage 3, currency debasement and inflation. This is where empires make the fatal choice. They can't raise taxes enough. They can't cut military spending without losing territory, so they debase the currency. Rome does it gradually. In 64 AD, under Nero, the silver denarius is 94% pure silver. By 260 AD, it's 5% silver. The government reduces the silver content year after year to mint more coins and pay the legions. Prices explode. Between 200 AD and 300 AD, the price of wheat in Egypt increases by 20,000%. Not a typo. 20,000%. The Roman historian Lactantius writes in 314 AD, "When by various extortions they had made all things exceedingly dear, they set about regulating the prices of commodities. Then much blood was shed. Men were afraid to expose anything for sale. Scarcity became more excessive and grievous than ever. Price controls during hyperinflation. It doesn't work. It never works. The Ottomans debased their currency too. In 1640, the Ottoman akçe contains 0.7 grams of silver. By 1690, it contains 0.048 grams. The silver content drops 93% in 50 years. Food riots break out in Istanbul in 1687. The Janissaries revolt over pay. The empire starts paying soldiers in debased coins. The soldiers know. Everyone knows. Britain doesn't debase silver. They do something more sophisticated. They leave the gold standard. September 21st, 1931. Britain abandons the gold standard after 200 years. The pound immediately devalues by 25%. The Bank of England can now print without constraint. It's the same mechanism, different technology, same result. And this is where Stage 4 begins. Stage 4. Military overreach. An empire in economic decline makes a predictable choice. It tries to maintain its military position even as the economic foundation crumbles. Rome, in 285 AD, splits into 4 administrative zones under Diocletian. Why? Because the empire has 50 provinces and 400,000 soldiers, but can't coordinate them anymore. The military is overstretched across 4,000 miles of frontier. The borders are too long. The enemies are too numerous. The treasury is too empty. In 378 AD, the Battle of Adrianople, a Roman army of 30,000 is destroyed by Gothic cavalry. 2/3 of the soldiers die. Emperor Valens dies on the battlefield. Rome can't replace these losses. The military recruitment base has collapsed. The empire starts hiring Germanic mercenaries to fight other Germans. By 440 AD, half the Roman army isn't Roman. The Ottomans follow the same trajectory. At their peak in 1683, they besiege Vienna with 150,000 men. They control territory from Algeria to Iraq, but they can't hold it. The military is spread across 3 continents. In 1699, the Treaty of Karlowitz. The Ottomans lose Hungary. In 1718, they lose Belgrade. In 1774, they lose Crimea. Each loss makes the next loss easier. The empire starts hiring mercenaries, Albanian irregulars, Kurdish cavalry, troops who fight for whoever pays. By 1821, during the Greek War of Independence, the Ottoman army can't suppress a rebellion in its own heartland. They hire the Egyptian army to do it for them. Britain's overreach is more recent. In 1945, Britain has military bases in 47 countries. The Royal Navy has 15 battleships and 50 aircraft carriers, but the treasury is empty. The empire owes America $4.3 billion. It owes Canada another billion. The military budget is 20% of GDP, and the economy is shattered. Between 1945 and 1967, Britain withdraws from India, Palestine, Egypt, Kenya, Cyprus, Aden, and Malaysia. Not because of military defeat, because of cost. The British historian Corelli Barnett writes in 1972, "The British Empire did not decline because of the rise of nationalism in the colonies. It declined because Britain could no longer afford to defend it. Follow the money. Always follow the money. And this is where America is right now. The United States in 2026 maintains approximately 800 military installations in 80 countries. The Department of Defense budget for fiscal year 2024 is $842 billion. That doesn't include veterans' benefits. That doesn't include nuclear weapons maintenance under the Department of Energy. That doesn't include intelligence agencies. Total national security spending, approximately $1.4 trillion per year. The national debt is $36 trillion. That's 122% of GDP. Debt service in 2024, $892 billion. Just the interest, not the principal, the interest. The U.S. spends more on interest than on the military. Stay with me, because this is where Stage 5 begins. Stage 5, loss of allies and credibility. An empire in Stage 5 can still win battles, but it starts losing allies. Other nations stop trusting its commitments. They start making alternative arrangements. Rome in 406 AD. The Rhine freezes. Germanic tribes cross into Gaul. The Roman legions in Britain send a letter to Emperor Honorius asking for reinforcements. In 410 AD, Honorius sends a reply. The rescript of Honorius. He tells the British provinces to look to their own defenses. Rome is abandoning Britain after 367 years. The message is clear. Rome can't protect its allies anymore. Within a generation, every Roman ally in Western Europe makes separate peace with the barbarians. The Visigoths settle in Aquitaine. The Burgundians settle in Gaul. The Vandals take North Africa, not because they defeat Rome in battle, because Rome is no longer a reliable protector. The Ottomans lose their allies the same way. In 1798, Napoleon invades Egypt. Egypt is technically Ottoman territory. The Sultan sends no help. Zero. The Mamluks of Egypt realize the empire can't protect them. In 1805, they invite Muhammad Ali to rule Egypt independently. The empire loses its wealthiest province without a battle. In 1830, France invades Algeria, also Ottoman territory. Again, Istanbul sends no help. Algeria is gone. By 1900, the Ottomans have lost 60% of their territory, not from conquest, from abandonment. Their allies stop believing in Ottoman protection. Britain's loss of credibility happens at Suez, July 26, 1956. Egyptian President Nasser nationalizes the Suez Canal. Britain and France plan a military response. They've controlled the canal for 74 years. They're not giving it up. October 29, 1956. Britain and France invade. The military operation succeeds. Anglo-French forces take the canal in 6 days. But America opposes the operation. President Eisenhower threatens to sell U.S. holdings of British pounds. The pound collapses. Britain faces a currency crisis. November 6, 1956. Britain withdraws. Not because of military failure, because America forced them to. The message goes global. Britain can't act without American permission. The empire is finished as an independent power. Within 5 years, every British ally in Africa and Asia starts negotiating independence. Not because they defeat Britain militarily, because Britain is no longer credible. And here's what's happening now. In March 2023, China brokers a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. 2 American allies make peace without American involvement. That's never happened before. In August 2023, BRICS announces expansion. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Iran, and Ethiopia join. These are countries that previously oriented their foreign policy around American preferences. In February 2024, the UAE and India complete an oil transaction in rupees, not dollars. The petrodollar system, established in 1974, is eroding. These aren't military defeats. These are credibility losses. Other nations are making alternative arrangements. This is stage 5. Now let's talk about stages 6 and 7, because this is where the pattern gets dark. Stage 6, political paralysis. An empire in stage 6 can see the problems. Everyone can see the problems. But the political system can't respond. Factions fight each other instead of solving the crisis. Rome in 235 AD enters the crisis of the 3rd century. Over the next 50 years, Rome has 26 emperors. Average reign, 22 months. The Senate can't agree on reforms. The army makes and unmakes emperors. Different legions support different candidates. The empire fragments into 3 competing states between 260 and 274 AD. The problems are obvious. The currency is worthless. The borders are collapsing. The treasury is empty. But the political system is locked. Every proposed solution threatens someone's power, so nothing happens. The Ottomans hit political paralysis in 1876. Sultan Abdulhamid II suspends the constitution after just 1 year. Why? Because the parliament demands financial reforms that would reduce military spending. The military says no. The religious authorities say no. The Sultan sides with them. For the next 30 years, the empire is politically frozen. Reformers are exiled. The military blocks changes. The debt grows. The territories shrink. In 1908, the Young Turks stage a revolution to force reforms. Too late. The empire has 14 years left. Britain's paralysis is more subtle. Between 1945 and 1956, Britain has 4 prime ministers. Churchill, Attlee, Churchill again, Eden. Each one knows the empire is finished. Each one knows the debt is unsustainable. Each one knows the military is overstretched. But the political system can't accept it. The Labour Party wants to maintain the welfare state. The Conservative Party wants to maintain the empire. Neither party has the votes to do both, so they do nothing. The debt grows. The pound weakens. The crisis builds, until Suez forces the decision. And here's where America is right now. The U.S. political system has been unable to pass a balanced budget since 2001. That's 25 years. The last budget surplus was in fiscal year 2000. The national debt has increased under every president since 2001. Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. Every single one. Not because they're incompetent, because the political system can't make the necessary choices. Cut military spending? Both parties say no. Cut entitlement spending? Both parties say no. Raise taxes significantly? Both parties say no. So the debt grows. From $5.7 trillion in 2000 to $36 trillion in 2026. The Congressional Budget Office projects the debt will reach $50 trillion by 2034. That's 150% of GDP. Everyone knows this is unsustainable. The CBO knows, the Federal Reserve knows, the Treasury knows, but the political system is paralyzed. Any solution requires someone to lose, and no faction has enough power to force the others to accept losses. This is stage 6, which brings us to stage 7, rapid collapse. Here's what people don't understand about imperial collapse. It doesn't happen gradually. Stages 1 through 6 can take centuries. Stage 7 takes years. Rome from 455 AD to 476 AD, 21 years. In 455, Rome is still the capital of an empire that controls Italy, North Africa, and parts of Gaul. In 476, the emperor is a teenager named Romulus Augustulus, who gets deposed by a Germanic chieftain. The collapse is so rapid that historians still debate what happened. The traditional date of the fall is 476, but you can make arguments for 410, 455, or 480, because once stage 7 starts, everything happens at once. The Ottomans from 1918 to 1922, 4 years. In 1918, the Ottoman Empire still exists. It's occupied and defeated, but it exists. In 1922, it's abolished. The Sultan is exiled. The empire becomes Turkey. 4 years from empire to nation-state. Britain from 1956 to 1967. 11 years. In 1956, Britain withdraws from Suez. In 1967, Britain withdraws from Aden and announces withdrawal from all bases east of Suez. 11 years from superpower to regional power. The pattern is consistent. Stage 7 is rapid, it's chaotic, and it's usually triggered by a financial crisis. Rome's final collapse follows the sack of Rome in 455 and the loss of North Africa to the Vandals. No North African grain means no way to pay the army. No army means no empire. The Ottoman collapse follows bankruptcy in 1875, military defeat in 1918, and occupation by Allied forces. The empire can't pay its debts. The creditors carve it up. Britain's collapse follows the Suez Crisis, the Pound Crisis, and the IMF bailout of 1976. Britain has to get a loan from the International Monetary Fund like a developing country. Financial crisis triggers political collapse, triggers military withdrawal, triggers imperial end. And the question everyone wants answered, is America in Stage 6 heading to Stage 7? Here's what the data shows. The US dollar is still the global reserve currency. 59% of global foreign exchange reserves are in dollars as of 2024. That's down from 71% in 1999, but it's still dominant. The US military can still project power globally. The carrier strike groups work. The Air Force maintains superiority. The Special Operations Forces are unmatched. But the debt trajectory is unsustainable. And the political system shows no ability to change course. Every collapse has a story. Let's investigate this one honestly. The pattern suggests that Stage 7 is triggered by a loss of confidence in the currency. Not military defeat, not political revolution, financial crisis. For Rome, it was the debasement of the denarius. For the Ottomans, it was the bankruptcy of 1875. For Britain, it was the pound crisis of 1956. For America, the trigger would be loss of confidence in the dollar as a reserve currency. If creditors stop buying treasury bonds, if foreign central banks start dumping dollar reserves, if oil exporters demand payment in other currencies, that hasn't happened yet. But the conditions are developing. The question isn't if America will face a financial crisis, the question is when, and whether the political system can respond before Stage 7 begins. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. 3 empires, same 7 stages, same sequence, same result. Rome thought its military made it invincible. The Ottomans thought their geography made them indispensable. Britain thought the pound would remain supreme forever. All 3 were wrong. America has advantages they didn't have: reserve currency status, nuclear weapons, geographic isolation, technological dominance. But every empire has advantages, until those advantages stop mattering. The pattern doesn't care about advantages. The pattern cares about debt, military overreach, political paralysis, and loss of credibility. And on those metrics, America is at Stage 5, heading toward Stage 6. What can history teach us today? That empires end not with a bang, but with a series of choices. Small choices, budget choices, debt choices, military deployment choices. And once you're past Stage 3, the choices get harder, and the time gets shorter. The Roman Empire took 247 years to collapse. The Ottoman Empire took 181 years. The British Empire took 41 years. The pattern compresses. How long does America have? History suggests that Stage 6 lasts between 20 and 50 years. Britain was in Stage 6 from 1918 to 1956, the Ottomans from 1875 to 1918. If America entered Stage 5 around 2008 during the financial crisis, then Stage 6 might last until 2030 or 2050, but the pattern compresses. And modern financial systems move faster than Ottoman tax collectors or Roman grain shipments. The only certainty is the pattern. 7 stages. Every empire. No exceptions yet. Next video, I'm going deep on Stage 6, how Rome's political paralysis worked in detail, the specific factions, the specific DEA.